Can gold really be the proof that an advanced, unknown, and lost civilization has preceded us? Although we cannot consider it the smoking gun of an ancient civilization, it is without doubt a sign of great value, which combined with extraordinary discoveries, historical documents, and mysterious traditions, opens the way to a hypothesis that deserves to be investigated. To fully understand the meaning of this hypothesis, we must embark on a journey into the most remote past, of which we have a trace. A fascinating journey that challenges our conventional vision of gold and its meaning, and discover together that this precious metal, venerated by all civilizations, could hide a story capable of unfolding everything we thought we knew about our past. Well, before we leave for this incredible journey, as we always do, we invite you to subscribe to the channel because your support is essential for our work. Gold, since the dawn of civilization, has exerted an extraordinary charm on all cultures of the world. The first documented traces of its use date back to about 6,000 years ago, with manufactures in Mesopotamia and Egypt, two of the first great civilizations in human history. However, what makes gold so interesting from a historical and anthropological point of view is not only its beauty, but the fact that, unlike many other precious materials, gold has never had a real and proper practical use for everyday purposes or survival. Unlike materials such as iron or bronze, which were used to create tools, weapons, and work tools, gold was not suitable for these purposes. It was too soft to be used effectively in the construction or manufacture of weapons, and did not have any particular quality that favored its practical use in productive or warlike contexts. All these aspects make its history even more mysterious because a material with no apparent functional use has been venerated, accumulated, and used in such a pervasive way. One of the most plausible answers that are used to explain all this is that the charm of gold lies mainly in its intrinsically symbolic appearance and in its rarity. Gold, thanks to its brilliance and its color that recalls the light of the sun, has always represented concepts such as the divine, immortality, and power. In many ancient cultures, in fact, the sun was considered a deity or the emblem of a higher power, and gold, with its permanent light and the fact that it does not oxidize, would have been associated with these ideals. I am the god of gold, the heart of the god Ra, who shines in the sky and reigns forever. My face is gold, and my eyes are those of the sun god. This quote from the Book of the Dead Egyptians sees in gold a symbolic link with the god Ra. The Egyptians believed that gold had a direct link with eternal life, and used it prominently in the royal tombs to guarantee the deceased a safe passage into the afterlife. The famous sarcophagus of Tutankhamun, for example, is covered in solid gold, a testimony of the mystical and spiritual value that was attributed to this precious metal. Even in Mesopotamia, gold was used mainly for religious and prestigious purposes. In the ziggurats and in the Mesopotamian temples, gold symbolized the connection between the sovereign and the gods, and its presence in manufactures and ornaments indicated the absolute power of kings and priests. But also from the other side of the world, pre-Columbian civilizations, such as those of the Incas, Mayans, and Aztecs, although completely separated from the Old World, attributed a sacred value to gold. Even in this case, gold objects were not used in everyday life, but were reserved for religious ceremonies and to represent the divine power of the sovereigns. Legends such as that of El Dorado, the hidden city of gold, reflect the importance of gold for these cultures and the obsession of European conquerors in trying to seize these immense riches. The desire for gold was so strong that when Spanish conquerors arrived in the Americas, they ravaged entire cities and destroyed millenary cultures in order to take possession of this metal. Bernal Diaz del Castillo, one of the Spanish conquerors who accompanied Hernán Cortés, describes in detail the amount of gold he found in Tenochtitlan and its use in the temples. In the houses of the gods, there were large quantities of gold that shone everywhere, covering statues, altars, and sacred ornaments. The Aztecs venerated gold as the sweat of the sun. Another explanation of the symbolic value attributed to gold could be found in its unique physical properties. Gold does not corrode or deteriorate, maintaining its brilliance and purity even after thousands of years. This feature would have made it the ideal symbol of eternity, purity, and immortality, fundamental concepts for many of the first human civilizations. Well, if these are the most plausible and most well-known explanations as to why gold has become that precious metal that we all know, if we analyze the matter in more detail, important questions arise. But let us proceed in order. Thanks to what we have found in the historical testimonies, we know that there was a large quantity of gold in Egypt. But at this point, a spontaneous question arises. Where did all this gold come from? Historical sources partly come to our aid. They speak of mining expeditions organized by various pharaohs, especially in the Nubian regions, present-day Sudan, where large deposits of gold were found. The Egyptians had a well-organized structure to extract gold and transport it into the cities, where it was melted and worked by specialized craftsmen. But despite this, the size of the Egyptian gold reserves, considering the quantity found and the one that has probably been lost over the millennia, continue to raise many questions. If it is true that in Nubia the ancient Egyptians had built various extraction mines, it is also true that these mines cannot explain the large amount of gold that the Egyptians had at their disposal. We must not forget, in fact, that gold is a rare metal, although quite widespread. But the real problem arises in extracting it from the rock, which is not a simple and immediate operation, and requires a good technological capacity. We know that the Egyptians had developed advanced architectural and engineering techniques, but it is not clear how they were able to exploit deep mines without the modern technologies we know today. The gold extraction techniques in ancient Egypt involved manual excavation and the fracture of the auriferous rocks. In some cases, the miners worked in extremely difficult conditions, going deep into the mountains of the eastern desert or along the Nile. Despite the sacrifice and exploitation of many men, the large-scale extraction in underground mines would still require very sophisticated and suitable technical knowledge. For example, to guarantee ventilation, water drainage, and the extraction of precious metal from the rock. So what did the Egyptians do with their technology to face these challenges? We must assume that they had more advanced techniques than what is usually attributed to them. If we accept this, we must at the same time take into consideration that other ancient peoples also had these technological capacities, because other great civilizations of antiquity had access to significant quantities of gold, such as the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the peoples of ancient India, and the pre-Columbian cultures. Is it possible that all this gold, which was already circulating in ancient times, was the result of the work that these civilizations carried out in archaic mines? The suspicion is that, although these peoples dedicated themselves to gold extraction, their technical capabilities were still not sufficient to explain the presence of large quantities of gold in such ancient times. So where did all this gold come from? In order to answer this question, we must go even further back in time to explore an era and a place of which we do not have precise historical evidence, but of which we have found incredible artifacts. We are talking about the African continent and its extraordinary mines. Africa is one of the richest regions of gold in the world. Currently, many of the main global gold deposits are located in Africa, in particular in countries such as South Africa, Ghana, Mali, Zimbabwe, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The gold mines in South Africa, for example, are among the most productive in the entire planet. It is enough to think that 50% of the gold ever extracted comes from the region of Witwatersrand. It is therefore reasonable to ask whether active mines also existed in the past, and whether they are responsible for the large amount of gold present in past eras. The fact that in past eras, the mines present in the African continent were used by ancient populations trading with the civilizations present in Europe, the Middle East, and India becomes more and more concrete every year. Today, for example, we know that between the 11th and 15th centuries, an ancient kingdom flourished in South Africa and was located in present-day Zimbabwe and was known as Great Zimbabwe. We know very little about this ancient people. Today, we have only found the ruins of an ancient city, a city that was already abandoned when the Portuguese conquerors arrived in the area. Historians believe that Great Zimbabwe was the main city of a vast empire, called the Monomotapa Empire, which was formed from the 7th century in the region around Lake Kyle, between Matabeleland and Manicaland. and then came to control much of present-day Zimbabwe and Mozambique. The discovery of finds such as fragments of Chinese and Persian ceramics, Arab coins, and other objects of foreign origin suggests that Great Zimbabwe was an important node of a vast commercial network that reached the Far East. The presence of mines in the surroundings also suggests that the local population traded mainly in gold. If this discovery pushes the exploitation of African gold mines back in time, what two independent researchers claim to have discovered in South Africa takes us to a very distant time in the prehistoric era, and precisely 200,000 years ago. Michael Tellinger and geologist Johan Heine have studied for years the region of Mpumalanga in South Africa, a place where ancient temples of circular shape and mineral sites are found, which could rewrite the history of mankind. According to their research, these structures and mines, located mainly in the Barberton area, represent one of the most enigmatic discoveries of our time. Tellinger and Heine argue, in fact, that these mines were not exploited by known civilizations, but by a lost civilization, which existed over 200,000 years ago. But how did they get to this date so remote? Tellinger gave the mines of Mpumalanga through a combination of geological and archaeological studies conducted by Heine. The rocks of the Barberton Greenstone Belt, which date back to about 3 billion years ago, contain some of the oldest traces of mining activity. Analyzing the geological composition and the characteristics of the rocks surrounding the mines, the two researchers hypothesized that they were exploited in incredibly remote times before any known human civilization. The deterioration of the structures, the level of erosion, and the arrangement of the stone circles surrounding the mines suggests that these sites underwent slow and natural geological processes, which developed on a much larger timescale than that of the historically documented civilizations. This level of erosion and deterioration led the researchers to propose a date of about 200,000 years for the beginning of mining activity in this area. To reach this date, not being able to use radiocarbon to date the rocks, the patina method was used. But what does this method consist of? This method is based on observation and analysis of the surface layer formed on rocks and objects exposed to the environment for long periods. The patina is a thin coating that accumulates due to chemical, physical, or biological processes, such as oxidation, the reaction with the atmosphere, and the growth of microorganisms. This layer can provide clues about the age of the object or structure, since the patina is formed very slowly over time. The patina can take on different colors, such as brown, black, or green, depending on the minerals involved and the environmental conditions. In general, the thicker the layer, the longer the object has been exposed to the environment. But the formation rate of the patina is influenced by many factors and cannot be used as a precise chronometer. To this first dating, the two researchers added another one that we can call astronomical, thanks to the discovery of a series of megalithic sites around the mines. Around the mines, thousands of stone circles, which seem to be directly linked to mining activities. These structures, also visible in satellite images, cover vast areas and show surprising geometric precision. According to Tellinger, stone circles were not just ancient houses or ritual structures, but part of a complex technological system used for the extraction and processing of gold. The estimated age of the circles is also estimated at about 200,000 years, and this estimate, in addition to the patina method, is based on another element, Adam's calendar. In 2003, Heine was flying over the area of Mpumalanga when he noticed unusual rocky formations on the ground. When he approached to explore the site, he discovered that these stones seemed to be arranged in a deliberate and unnatural way, forming a large circle. Heine and Tellinger, studying the site to try to understand its function and origin, noticed that some stones were arranged in a precise way, so much so that they aligned with the cardinal points and with specific astronomical events. This led them to conclude that the site was a kind of prehistoric calendar. Calculating the position of the stars, they came to establish that the site could go back to about 200,000 years ago. Dating the site of Mpumalanga and its mines to about 200,000 years is undoubtedly a shocking hypothesis. We know, in fact, that Homo sapiens appeared on Earth between 200,000 and 300,000 years ago. To think that these prehistoric populations were not only able to erect megalithic structures, but also to dig mines in search of gold, challenges all our current knowledge. An idea that contradicts what we have so far hypothesized about the technological evolution of humanity. The question at this point arises spontaneously. Why would prehistoric men have to dig mines for gold? And even more important, with what technology would they have been able to carry out such a task? The theory proposed by Tellinger at this point is even more fascinating because it connects everything to the famous legend of the Anunnaki, an extraterrestrial race that, according to unconventional translations of the Sumerian texts, would have come to Earth thousands of years ago to extract gold. According to Tellinger, the Anunnaki would have used these mines to collect huge amounts of gold and take it to Nibiru, their home planet, to solve atmospheric problems. The date of 200,000 years would coincide with the time when the Anunnaki would have arrived on Earth and would have begun to use human beings as labor force to extract gold. The Mpumalanga mines could therefore be a tangible proof of this ancient extraction activity, and the stone circles would be the remains of an advanced technology used to facilitate gold extraction. Tellinger's hypothesis is obviously extraordinary. It links the discovery in South Africa with the theories proposed by Zechariah Sitchin, and which see in the ancient Sumerian texts the testimony of an external intervention that saw the birth of our species. Tellinger's theory is obviously not accepted by the scientific community, as it is based on speculative interpretations of ancient texts and unconventional, even discarding Tellinger's hypothesis. The mystery of who created these mines and why remains unresolved. In fact, there is a debate about the actual antiquity of these sites. According to official reconstructions, the mines would be much more recent, dating back to about 2,000 years ago, and therefore posterior to the ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian civilizations. Although this may question Tellinger's theories, it does not solve the problem of the enormous amount of gold present in even more remote times. Today, gold is used in the manufacture of integrated circuits, connectors, and microprocessors for computers, smartphones, and other advanced electronic devices. The thin gold sheets and the gold-plated wires are used to ensure a clean data and electrical signals transmission without interference, especially in high-precision devices. Today, therefore, unlike in the past, gold is also used for its physical properties, which, however, could not have been known or used in ancient times unless there had been a fairly advanced civilization able to exploit these properties. So if we admit for a moment that this ancient civilization existed, is it possible that the gold present in antiquity and that we struggle to explain is simply what remains of an ancient use made by a more advanced civilization? Gold that may have been taken, melted, and transformed for millennia. If we look at the history of which we have certain documentation, this practice of reusing precious or valuable materials, such as gold or other resources, is not new at all. Numerous historical testimonies show us how successive civilizations have plundered, dismantled, or reused architectural and decorative elements of ancient monuments to create new works or for more practical purposes. An emblematic example is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Originally, this pyramid was covered with very high quality from the Tura caves located near Cairo. These limestone blocks had a smooth and shiny surface reflecting the sun's light, giving the pyramid a brilliant and spectacular appearance, so much so that it was nicknamed the Mountain of Light. The pyramids were built with huge blocks of smooth stone, reflecting the sun's light like a mirror. Each side shone with a bright light, as if they were made of gold. Over the centuries, these blocks of clothing were taken and reused in numerous architectural projects during the Islamic period, particularly during the Mamluk period. The Mamluks, who ruled Egypt, used large quantities of limestone taken from the pyramids to build mosques, palaces, and other structures in Cairo. The city, in constant expansion, required large quantities of building materials, and the pyramids provided an easily accessible source. These recovery episodes were not limited only to architecture. Many gold artifacts, such as coins or ancient jewels, were often melted and transformed over the centuries. For example, during the Roman Empire and later in the Middle Ages, gold from treasures and war loot was refused to mine new coins or create new objects of prestige. This cycle of recovery and reuse has been a constant in human history, and we have precise documentation. So if there had been a very ancient civilization that used gold, it would have been very likely that over the millennia, this had been smuggled and reused. Speaking of an ancient and advanced civilization, Plato, in his works, describes the existence of Atlantis, an evolved civilization that would have dominated the world in a remote era. Plato describes many details of this civilization and what we learn from his writings, and that precious metals, including gold, in their constructions, they mainly used a kind of white stone, black and red, and covered the city walls with molten brass, while the outer wall was covered with tin, and the inner wall surrounding the city was shiny gold. Could this be an explanation of why in ancient times there was already a large amount of gold, even in the absence of technology capable of extracting and processing it? Obviously, we do not have a certain answer, but the presence of ancient mines of difficult dating, mines that required significant technological skills, and the mysterious presence of large amounts of gold in remote eras and in civilizations very distant from each other, makes this a hypothesis worthy of deepening. At this point, we are really curious to know your opinion. Let us know in the comments what you think, and if you like the video and want to support our work and do not miss our new videos, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Hi, I'm John. Our journey into mystery continues. If you want to uncover more hidden truths and answers to the greatest enigmas, leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Together we'll explore the unknown, and who knows what secrets we'll find.